resources for learning and snacks. Yes, aren't the snacks so important? And the learning, of course, of course. Let's see, communicating with other staff, like the, yes, replies to emails, goes to meetings, etc. I wonder what other things, what are some other ideas that we have about what William does? For sure, he has a lot of meetings, I bet. Budget, ooh, budget, that's a good one. Love that. I'm gonna stop our sound actually, so that we can be here and to see our screens. Since William is joining in just a minute. Managing and making big decisions. Yes, can you imagine some of the big decisions that William has to make on the day-to-day? Some decisions like maybe how do we turn our program from an in-person program to virtual? That was a big decision that William had to make for sure. Okay, let's see. If I am gonna see, sign files. I wonder what kind of files he has to sign. What kind of meetings? A bunch of meetings. Lots of meetings arranged with other programs or organizations about finance and resources. Let's see, what kind of resources and things do you think William is learning about in those meetings? I'm just going to call on people now. This is fun. Okay, Rachel, you're the very first scholar I see. Rachel, what kind of meetings do you think William has?
Meetings like for a budget, maybe like planning future, or like implementing like SEO's vision into like organization.
I love that. Great idea. Thanks so much for sharing. I'm going to call on someone else. How about let's hear from Sandra.
I think also kind of like what Rachel said, maybe also to see like what they're going to do in the future with the whole in-person thing maybe, and how we're going to adjust too.
Cool. Thank you so much, Sandra. Appreciate it. And I noticed that William is here with us now. William, we were just getting warmed up for you by answering, what do we think you do today?
All right. Well, hi everyone. It's so good to be part of SEO Scholars Speaker Series. Is that what you call it?
Yes.
So
that's right.
I'm sorry I'm a little late. It's one of these snafus. Has anyone ever heard that term, snafu? Who knows what snafu means? What it's an acronym for? Chat. So it's situation naturally all blanked up. So it's just when things go wrong naturally. So there was snafu with the link with the login. I wasn't checking my email. So I'm here now. How are we gonna do this?
Yeah, welcome. So thanks, William, for being here. Like I said, we were getting warmed up by thinking about what you might do during your day-to-day on the job. But scholars, we wanted to officially welcome William Goodloe, SEO's president and CEO, and thank him for being with us today. So William, we thought that you could start off by just giving a general introduction of yourself, talking about things like where did you grow up, where did you attend college, and giving us a little insight into your early career. Then we can pause and have some questions for that, and then we can talk all about SEO and how you came to SEO and what your journey was to being CEO. How does that sound?
Sounds great. That sounds great. Thanks, Miranda. So I grew up in Brooklyn, New York. I'm a New Yorker. I think that has anyone seen the movie A Bronx Tale? I'm doing all these cultural references. If you haven't seen it, please watch it. The reason I bring it up is we had a lot of fun growing up. I grew up in the housing projects, and I actually witnessed the projects decline as a place to live, and just got really less attractive. And a lot of people were moving out. We couldn't afford to move out. But that's the reason I compare it to the Bronx Tale, is because I had a lot of fun growing up. I had a lot of friends. We played sports, but there was always this temptation. And it was always even a fear, a negative peer pressure that something could go wrong, and that one act could, you could go on the wrong path and cross the edge. I mean, I'm thinking of time I was 15. I'm riding around in a stolen car. I won't give you the details about it for several days. And thinking, oh, well, I'm only 15, because then I know stuff like this when you're growing up there. They'll still treat me as a juvenile. Some of my friends were 16, where you get treated as an adult in the court system. So things like that, drugs were common, people strung out on heroin, things like that. But overall, as I said, it was a good childhood. My big break was getting to go to a school called Brooklyn Tech. And there was a test to get into Brooklyn Tech. And you didn't, at that time, if they told you, oh, this is a aptitude test, you can't study for it. The way you prepare is you get a good night's sleep, bring a couple of number 2 pencils, they weren't on the computer at that time, the laptop, and take the test. So dozens of people literally in my surrounding area attended. And so many of them, Hispanic, Black, Asian, were attending tech. Now, if you look at just Black and Hispanic students, it was more than 50% Black and Hispanic when I was there. Now it's about 13% Black and Hispanic. And a lot of that is because there is so much focus on test prep. We do know you can study for the test. So you get this super quality education that's probably as good as any prep school, independent private school, for free. So many parents or kids themselves arrange to pay tutors and what they call cram schools to prepare for this test. So a lot fewer low-income people, or people from low-income communities, get access to this education. And maybe I'll get to it, but that was part of the reason that we structured the Scholars Program the way we did, because I knew from personal experience there's so much talent. It's widely distributed, and yet it's unevenly developed. There's talent everywhere. It just needs the opportunity to show what they can do. And that really led to me years later wanting to join SEO and try to help shape the Scholars Program so that people who are talented and may be from low-income communities could get access to the same college preparatory quality education that others were. I'll stop there. I know it's a long-winded answer to your question.
Oh, that was really great, and helped us get thinking about part 2 of what we'll have you discuss. So we'll pause there, scholars. Who's going to jump in with a question? Just come right off mute and ask your question aloud. I'll give us a second.
I got a question. My name is David, and it's so nice to meet you. If you could give one advice that will help keep a person pushing, trying their hardest to reach their goal, what would it be?
Part of what you said, part of my answer, and that's to keep focused on the goal and why you are investing. It's not giving up time or doing something that doesn't have a payoff. It's focus on where it's going to get you and the rewards that await you in doing the activities you're going to do today. So that would be my advice. There was a study done by, I don't know, some university president, and university researchers, and what they realized is that too often people of color, people from low-income communities, are present focused, thinking about the next day, the next week, because of their circumstances. They may not have the luxury of thinking about a year from now or years from now, because they got to pay rent, they got to pay bills, they got to think about where the car payment is coming from, or how they're going to get car fare or public transportation, versus what can I do today to prepare myself for the type of tomorrow that I want, that I aspire for myself and my family. So just staying focused on the goal and how it's going to pay off in the long run.
Thank you.
You're very welcome, David.
Great question, David. Let's hear the next question. Just right like David, that was such a beautiful example. Come right off mute and ask your question.
What is one constant obstacle in your job? And if you've overcome it, how did you do so?
I think right now, the constant obstacle is the culture that we're trying to build at SEO, and finding new ways to remove obstacles to our team, as a staff team, of course, I'm talking about. And especially now, because of COVID and coronavirus, people have a lot of priorities that have nothing to do with SEO. So how can we be supportive of our team members? And of course, our team members are then supportive of our students, but it starts with the team members so that they're in a position to help our students, and create an environment, create a culture that's super supportive of the team, and that really regenerates itself. You know, it has this effect of that everyone embraces it and is invested in making it the workplace and making the work we do even more impactful and better. So that's something in my position I'm always, you know, talking to people and managers and team members and students about what else can we be doing. What else can we, you know, realistically, of course, but what else can we be doing that we're not doing? So that what else is always a challenge.
Thanks, Stephanie. And you all will come to learn that culture is something that's so important at a workplace. And maybe you start to think about what is that and what is a culture that you might like at your future workplace. Amilcar, I saw you come off mute too. Why don't you ask your question now?
Hi, my name is Amilcar Pablo. My question is, how do you deal with the problem in life, in school, and like in general?
I'm sorry, I didn't, my phone was ringing. I'm sorry, I got distracted for a second. How do I deal with what now?
How do you deal with a problem in life, in school, and in general?
A problem. It's, you know, someone I know, they have a phrase to take things seriously, but not yourself, you know, too seriously. And what I mean by that is I try not to take things personally and give people and situations the benefit of the doubt. And it's very important to value yourself first and foremost, and value, and some of that comes, as Miranda said, from the culture, your family culture, and knowing that you're valued and you're worthy and of success and opportunity. So then when problems come up in the road, and some of you have probably heard the phrase, if it doesn't kill you, it makes you stronger. I ain't going that far, you know, but I will say, view problems as opportunities. And after you've solved it, I mean, it's like a really tough math problem, and think about how good you feel after you've solved it, after you've figured out how to solve that equation. So yes, it's tough and it's really hard, but try not to let problems make you take your eye off your ultimate goal. And if it's problems with people, you don't need negative people in your lives. So you definitely want to eliminate, to the extent you can, people who are negative influences on you. And, you know, and as an adult, it took me a lot longer than I wish it had to realize that. So control what you can, and the things you can't control, you know, try not to let worry you too much.
Great. Thanks for that, William. We have time in this section for one more question. Cody, you have your hand up? Let's hear it.
How has college helped you?
I'm sorry, I missed that.
How has college helped you?
How has college helped me? I would not be on where I am today if not for college. And I think something that is not, I'll explain why in a second, but something that is not stressed enough and as a reason for going to college is that you learn, and graduate school and the school in general, you learn as much, if you really have to be open to it, from your fellow classmates as you do from the professor. And those connections you make from your fellow classmates, and believe me, from the people in SEO with you, will be lifelong connections. And so besides getting a degree and so with so many jobs, the first bar, and it's random. It's not like you necessarily need a college degree to do the job, but they figure, okay, how do we not get, overwhelmed with applicants? So let's say you need a BA is required, a Bachelor of Arts, or a bachelor's degree required. Then that immediately reduces the number of people who are going to apply for that job. And then they may say, well, let's say a 3.0 GPA is required. So then that immediately reduces the number of people. Some jobs will say, let's say a 3.5 GPA is required, which is like between an A and a B, A's and B's. So it's just a screening mechanism alone. So it gets you in the door and competitive for career opportunities that without a college degree, you otherwise might not have access to. And then secondly, the part about this network, one of my good friends, still a good friend from college, I'm the godfather of his son. He went on to law school, decided law is not for me, I'm gonna start a nonprofit organization. He starts a nonprofit in DC, the Center for Youth Development, where he's from that area. And I'm in sales at the time. And they expand to New York. And okay, I'm gonna diverge from the story just a little bit because my father died. It was a tragedy. My father died, and I needed to. Without a will, I needed a lawyer to sort through things. My father, my stepmother, my father's wife, and I went to a couple of lawyers. They wanted exorbitant prices. I asked my friend who's a lawyer. I said, "What do you think about this cost?" He says, "You know what? I could do it for half that amount." I said, "Cool, you do it." So he starts coming to New York for work, coming to New York for his job, running this nonprofit he founded, coming to New York. Also, while he's there, we meet about my father and settling, not quite an estate, but getting things organized. And one day he says to me, we're hanging out. He says, you could raise money to supplement this government contract we have from private money, and as a nonprofit, and we need private money from individuals, corporations, foundations. You're doing sales already. You could do this. Fast forward, I become a consultant. I quit my job a year and a half later, become VP and run the New York operation for this nonprofit, only because I met him in college. I asked him to be my lawyer for me and my stepmother. And then he asked me to help raise money for his nonprofit. I was successful at it. And then next thing I know, I'm in the nonprofit sector as an executive, and this leads to SEO. So the people you meet are just as important as the education you get and the credibility, for the credential, that's a better word, that you get of having a bachelor's degree in college. Again, sorry for the long-winded answer, but it's an important question, so I'm glad you asked.
No, sorry, William, that was great. And you sort of gave us a segue into the second part, but to pause us a little bit, I'm sure scholars would love to hear what college you even attended and what was your college experience like?
I had too much fun in college, I have to tell you. There's not quite as much pressure as there is today on college students. You could graduate, sort of without a job and figure it out. I would not recommend that today. But I went to American University in Washington, D.C. It was nothing calculated about the decision. I'm almost embarrassed to admit it. I live in New York. I wanted to be far enough away that my parents could not surprise me and visit me, but close enough I could get home on the weekend. So DC is about 4 hours from New York. So, trail a bus or a train or hitch a ride or whatever. And it was, I visited, nice campus. Okay, let me apply here. I played basketball in high school, so I wasn't good enough to play in college, but we did win 2 intramural championships at American University. I was the campus DJ for all the parties. So I was part of the founding of hip hop. I know it may be hard to believe, but we didn't think it was going to last or catch on. So I was the MC of the DJ crew. It was just a lot of college, a lot of fun. I also was the president of my fraternity. So that was interesting, and just it gave me a chance to interact with the administration in a different way. So that was really my first exposure to leadership. But college was a lot of fun. And as it turned out, when I went to apply for jobs, being the president of my fraternity and being, involved in sports, as you're interviewing, I come to find out that's valued, team sports and leadership, volunteer leadership, where people, you ain't paying them, they just gotta, hopefully work with you, is valued by employers. So definitely look for leadership positions as you on your way to college or once you are in college, but it has to be something you're enthusiastic about, something you want to do. And also find, affinity groups that you things you want to do in your free time. But remember, grades are first, because too many employers nowadays use grades as the first screen. They use it to screen people out more than screening people in. And really, beginning in freshman year, you've got to hit the ground running. But I had a good college experience.
Well, these scholars know all about GPA and the importance of GPA, especially as they're taking their community college class this summer and learning about how that will boost up their GPA. So scholars, definitely really crucial advice about how important your GPA actually is for now in high school, and then once you go off to college, right, as you're thinking about postgraduate opportunities. So William, you've told us a little bit of the story of how you learned about the nonprofit world and sort of started to get to SEO, but would you tell us a little bit more about that story and why SEO in particular?
So I had a few other jobs before SEO in the nonprofit sector and the for-profit sector. And when I heard about SEO, it was the first chance I really would have to help create programs and develop programs. When you're in sales, they give you a product to sell, you just sell it. Before SEO, I was executive director of something called the Inner City Scholarship Fund, which raised money for Catholic schools. So I'm not going in there and changing the school curriculum. I just raised money for them to help make the buildings nicer, make repairs, scholarships for the students. At SEO, there actually was the chance to develop the existing programs to look at ways we could improve them. And I was particularly drawn to the Scholars Program because going back, I knew that all this wasted talent, people who didn't take the test for tech or Stuyvesant or these exam schools, or maybe they took it and they just missed the cutoff. And I know today, I probably wouldn't have gone to that high school because I couldn't afford to take test prep. And that education allowed me to do well in college and truly be prepared and feel confident. And confidence is a beautiful thing, as I talked about earlier, with overcoming problems. It gives you that confidence. So knowing that this talent was everywhere, but the schools were really doing a disservice to far too many people in cities like New York, and the Scholars Program, there was an opportunity to develop a supplemental education component. The Scholars Program was sort of an after-school, out-of-school program. It was not Saturday classes. There were no summer classes. It just meant, not just, but it was mentoring. We were helping kids get into good colleges, but only about 50% were graduating. Because no matter how confident they were, you still had to have the skills to do well in those schools. So we looked at other organizations and said, and that had Saturday classes and said, why can't we do that? Why can't we have scholars come in on Saturdays and teach them critical reading, critical writing, vocabulary, grammar, math, in those areas that will truly prepare them to do well in college? And the first barometer, the first measure we used was the SAT. Let's see how well our students do on the SAT after 2 or 3 years of SEO classes compared to their peers who were attending more rigorous schools and getting a more rigorous education. And lo and behold, our students matched or exceeded the scores on the SAT, far exceeded the scores on the SAT for family income. Our students are scoring like students coming from families making 175, 180,000 per year. We've eliminated the Black-white SAT gap, the Hispanic-white SAT gap. So we felt comfortable, and believe me, the SAT ain't perfect, but we felt comfortable and the students felt confident now that they were prepared for college. And that's what's led to a robust college prep, scholars program, really staying with students throughout the college journey and focusing on 3 areas: academic, personal support, as well as career preparation. That's led to the 90% college graduation rate that SEO has. So I'll stop there, but that's what attracted me to SEO. And we've done some similar things with the other programs, is the chance to actually have input in the final version of the program.
Great, thanks, William. That gives us helps us paint the picture of sort of like seeing the needs, right, and then wanting to do something about it, and how the program started to evolve. And I always think about SEO. I wish I had a program like SEO when I was in high school as a first generation student as well. So we have some time for some more questions, and I'm told that Ronik has a question to get us started. So Ronik, over to you.
What do you do as a CEO and president of SEO?
It's changed a lot. And this is the one thing that all of you, I would stress to all of you, remember that life is always, we have one of our core values as SEO is continuous improvement. And you've got to continually improve in life. I have to tell you, I didn't know this, because when I got to SEO, I'm thinking, I can't wait for the time once I get help try to shape and hire the people where I could just cruise. That's never happened. That day never comes. You have to constantly be improving and learning. And remember, it's just like people. I don't know if you've ever heard the phrase that the people, just because they came with you, doesn't mean they can go with you. And what that means is, some people, unfortunately, and I mentioned earlier with the question about problems, some people just may not have the mindset or be consistent or aligned with your values, what's important to you, that you can continue, you can be friendly with them, but you're not going to hang out with them. So they may have gotten to a certain point where they may not have the same aspirations you do. So just because they came with you doesn't mean they can go with you. Similarly, just because what you did to get here is not the same things you have to do to get where you want to go. There's a better way to say it, but you get the point. So what I did early on, I couldn't keep doing. I had to, as SEO grew, and we started, when I joined SEO, we were about a $4 million organization. So raising about $4 million a year across the entire organization. This year, we will raise about $40 million. So we've grown 10 times. The amount of staff has grown, I don't know, multiples of times. So the things I could get involved in when we were smaller, I can no longer get involved in now. I've got to, think about what I talked about earlier, building the culture, the environment. I don't even know everyone who works for SEO now. It's really depressing. I don't interview everyone anymore, which I used to do. So it's constantly changing. But what I right now today, my primary goal is to make sure that our team, my top constituency, I have multiple constituency is the SEO team. It's not the students. It's not you guys. I don't want to hurt your feelings or anything, but the team that works with you and that is invested in you every single day is to make sure they have everything they need, everything I can give them, and in reasonable in my power. And we develop a culture at SEO that supports them as much as they can. And when hiring people to make sure that they're aligned, they already come into SEO believing what we believe, believing that there's talent everywhere, it just needs to be developed. That we develop people and give them opportunities to advance within SEO. And that's the great thing about a growing organization. We're promoting people a lot as we expand the staff to become new opportunities, so that we're preparing them to take advantage of those new opportunities and be promoted and take on more responsibility. So that's what I do these days. The other constituents are funders. We receive zero government funding, so we've got to deal with our board of directors. They're very helpful in helping us raise money, also talking to corporations, to foundations, individual philanthropists as well. All of these are ways that we just, again, make sure we have the resources so that we can support team members.
Okay, scholars, that was a lot. What do we think? I feel those questions bubbling under the surface. I know if I were in high school, I would have so many questions about what William just shared. So,
and by the way, I know we were scheduled to end at 3, but I'm good until 3:45. Just so you know. So I know I got on late. So.
Thank you. Scholars do have class. This is their lunch, so they
and
do
I'm
have
talking
class
New York
lunch.
time, actually.
That's fine. We're there. We're there. They have class after lunch, so we only have time for about maybe 1 or 2 more questions. So let's hear the question.
I have a question. My name is Rachel. It's really nice to meet you. I know you touched on this, and I also read like in your bio that you started your career in advertising, sales, and management. So how was your shift from like this pathway into like entirely new, different like industry with like educational industry, and even like becoming the CEO of SEO Scholars?
Wow, thanks for that question. This is a perfect example of you can't continue to do what you've done to get where you want to go. And so many people I've seen over the years get stymied because they're not as interested in growing their skills and growing their capabilities. So in sales, and I really appreciated the sales career because I did not have a great GPA. So a lot of jobs I wanted coming out of college, I wasn't eligible for, let's say. I didn't meet the criteria for. But sales, they want people who are, somewhat personal, can strike up a conversation, can connect with other people. And I learned the importance. My father owned a chicken restaurant when I was growing up, and he had me working at the counter from the time I was 10. So I have to deal with all sorts of customers. So it kind of came a little natural to me. And that's the good thing about interpersonal relations. And in any job, you have to focus on that, especially if you want to grow, because people have to be able to relate to you and to connect with you and to like you. My customers, like talking to me, so they would buy from me. People do business with people they like. And it doesn't mean you can't negotiate, you can't take a hard line when you have to, but being likable is important. And it doesn't mean you roll over and let people take advantage of you. But I learned those skills in selling. And I worked for some big companies, so they have really good training. But then, and it's similar, that's what my friend saw in fundraising. He said, sales, fundraising is the same thing. That's a little bit of an exaggeration, but there are definitely transferable skills. So I started out raising money from. The first thing you have to learn is understand your customer and understand how they make a buying decision. So with funding, understanding philanthropists, how do they decide what charity they're going to support? what things are important to them. And so getting that information, and there's an old saying in sales that you have 2 ears and 1 mouth for a reason. You should listen twice as much as you talk. And once you get the other people talking, the funder or the customer, then you learn about them. And then I was able to shape my presentation based on what was important to them, not what was important to me. And with SEO, there are enough, in the Scholars Program, there are enough elements to it. Once I knew what's important to them, I would focus on that element if I'm raising money for scholars or raising money for the other organizations. And understanding, say for instance, it's a husband-wife, just to use one example, and they make decisions as a couple. I would want to try to, and he said, yeah, I always have to talk to my wife, or she says, I always have to talk to my husband. Then I'd invite them both to a site visit at SEO so that they both receive the information together at the same time. So that's how it was really transferable. And then management, and then you know, you have 2 types of performers in the job, generally speaking, individual performers and managers / leaders who have to get things done through other people. And coming out of sales, I was an individual performer, and I had to completely change my mindset in that, how do I transfer what I know to others so that they can do more of what I may have been doing myself, or hiring people with those skills already, who or helping develop other people to get things done through other people. So those are how I've had to try to grow over the years. And that's some of the ways that sales is similar to nonprofit work, especially the development. Development's a euphemism for fundraising in the nonprofit world.
Thanks, William and Rachel. That was an excellent question. So props to you for a very, very good question. We are at time now, William, because the scholars do need a little bit of a break before they go back into class. So I'll close you out by asking you to sum up the role of CEO in 1 word, if you could choose 1 word.
Cheerleader.
Cheerleader. I love it. I think in many ways, program managers feel like cheerleaders too for all of these scholars in this room. So thank you, William, for spending your time with us. Scholars, thank you for spending your lunch with us and with William. Zoom round of applause. Thank you, thank you. So scholars, have a great rest of your day. Go eat some lunch, take that energy into your next class. William, we are so grateful for you once again. So thank you for being with us today.
It's my pleasure. Thanks for the opportunity. Go Scholars. We all believe in you, and we know you can do it. All right.
Great. Thanks, William. Take care.
My
Bye,
pleasure.
everyone.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank
so
you.
much,
Thank
guys.
you.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank
Bye.
you. Thank you. Bye.
Bye.